Welcome to I want to invite you to the last panel. I welcome Yael Rozencwajg from Blockchain Israel, who will moderate the panel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yael. I am running the Blockchain Israel organization since a year almost. We have 2,000 members. And we're creating events all around crypto and blockchain technologies. So today we're gonna have some talks and exchanges about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. If you have any question, please raise your hands. I mean, even during the talks. Okay, so welcome to all of you. Please present yourself.
Well, I had just a great forum.
Thank you, Melanie.
But
sorry.
Yeah, Melanie Mohr and the founder of YEAY and WOM Token.
Thank you. Richard Kramer, I'm the founder of ARETE Research.
Josh Liggett, FinTech and Blockchain Lead at OURCROWD. If you don't know what OURCROWD is, it's a venture capital crowdfunding hybrid. We've invested around a total of $700 million in assets under management in around 130 different companies.
Hello, my name is Ouriel. I've been many years in the AdTech business, both from building companies in the advertising space and investing in companies in the advertising space, involved in companies very early stage like Outbrain and TIDS, which is a very popular ad network, video ad network. And lately, I mean, for the past year and a half, I've been building my new company in the crypto space. I'm not talking about it yet, but it's in the security sector. And but I've been heavily involved publicly and also privately with all sorts of projects in the crypto space.
Thank you. We're going to explore a bit more what's going on with the crypto market. I'm by myself very curious, about the connection that we can make between crypto and marketplaces. We just saw your presentation, Melanie, and actually I was wondering how the new generation considers crypto. That's my,
well, a little example. So one of my teenage advisory board members, he has an influencer marketing agency running out of Germany, and he said he's now having 15 employees, so he's 16 years old. And 15 employees, and he said, well, Melanie, the first money I made, I immediately invested in Bitcoin. And so he said, that's so natural. And it's also, it's not only me being an entrepreneur who is interested in it. He said, go in the schoolyard, you will hear it everywhere. Everyone, is talking already about, digital currencies. Everyone is excited about this development and talking about, Ether and Monero and all the currencies that are evolving. It's still an early, of course, era now, and I dived into blockchain around 1.5 years ago, thankfully. So in the moment they pushed us into that, I knew what it meant. But I think with this new generation, they are going to embrace it, definitely.
Josh, what do you think about the average age of the new companies out there?
New companies or the new
investors?
I mean,
the new the new investors.
So
16.
I think that you're allowing, because of the lack of regulation behind Bitcoin and behind the purchase of Bitcoin, the fact that you don't have to be accredited, the fact that you can just go in and buy Ether or Monero and just go onto between a peer-to-peer transaction, whether or not you can buy it not necessarily through an exchange, or you can go to Ether Delta, which I think is recently. I don't know if it's even working anymore, but I've heard rumors. It is? Oh, it's back to working. So welcome to crypto. There's people are investing earlier. Whether or not that's a good idea or not is a different discussion, because the fact that this is such a volatile asset class as opposed to other traditional markets. So I think that young people are getting access to it, and young people are excited by it. which has positives and negatives because of just everything that's going around it.
Yeah, Richard, from an analyst's point of view.
I mean, I guess I am concerned with the, and we were talking about this before, with the notion of investing and crypto.
Yeah.
Because when you think of the traditional notion of investing, you're buying an asset which is well understood and freely tradable, and I think it's clear in many cases these are not well understood assets, and you know, when you're, it's kind of a parallel to the late 90s when I was an analyst and the dentist would be asking you for stock tips or talking about trading AOL or Cisco. You know, now the dentist is asking you, so what do you think of Ether versus Bitcoin? You know, while he's cleaning your teeth. And so I am very concerned about that and the lack of real understanding of the fundamentals of the technology. I think we agree in some cases. I'm full disclosure, I'm an angel investor in Brave.
Yeah.
They did an ICO. I think there you have a very credible team that raised money. They're spending the money on the project. It wasn't what I would call a pump and dump or puff and stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think we will end up discovering that there are many more of these schemes than we ever imagined out there, or some of the things we thought were credible end up being less worthy, and the new generation may be disappointed when they lose all their money, which you should always remember when you invest. That's the, you know, a stock can go to zero as well as go double or triple.
Yeah, Ouriel, a few words about how you consider, you know, the market.
So I have a different take on that. For me, the new generation look at crypto not as an investment; they look at it as a game. Yeah. And the reason why is because if you're looking, I mean, whoever has kids around them, you know, they are completely driven socially and emotionally by games. I mean, especially with mobile devices. And if you want any better example, you just look at the phenomenal success of Pokemon Go and Clash Royale and Clash of Clans and all those games, and lately Fortnite. And what games is providing to kids is not just the emotion, is the notion of digital ownership of an asset class. Yeah. And if you're looking at all those currencies, I think first they don't have the right name. You should stop calling them currencies. Once and for all, they are not currencies. They are assets, all sorts of assets. Some are collectibles, some are tokens, some are security tokens, but they're definitely not currencies for many reasons. And when they look at those as the extension of the world that they know, which is gaming. They've been trained, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of kids have been trained to own digital rewards, to own digital cash. And this is for them another extension of that. It's a different nature, sorry, but they do understand it very quickly. And that's why, you know, people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, all those famous investors, super successful, just don't get it. They are so negative about it because they think about it as investment. And it's really more about gaming. It's a special game, it's a complex game, it has its own rules, and soon it will be a regulated game, but it's a game.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm reading like you do all the time, the market views and everything related to CoinDesk, the post, the analysis. We see ICOs all over the places. I'm a bit worried about what I read regarding the acceleration and the upcoming month. That's going to be maybe a long burn rate or a big failure regarding ICO, or are we going to see more and more positive ICOs and succeed? I mean, what do you think on that side?
I think first we need to put a few things in perspective. 90% of startups are failing in the first year.
Absolutely.
And they are challenged by professional venture capitalists or angel investors who looked at them, who did their due diligence, and still, 90% fail.
Yeah.
And therefore, I would say, yeah, we will see a natural failure rate because these companies are early stage companies mainly.
Very
therefore we will see failure. But to put this in perspective, A, with the failure rate in venture capital funded startups, and B, also a little bit, I'm totally with you with the gaming aspect, and I think the first real great success cases of successful tokens will potentially come out of the esports and gaming segment. But the online gaming market, people just spent more than 50 billion in online gaming last year.
This is
and there was now, I think, a 6 billion spent in ICOs. So, and the people who are invested last year in ICOs and still do are mainly kind of professionals. Still people from the blockchain industry, people who have already some Ether or some Bitcoin on their accounts and are in a way already in the know. It's not, you know, Hannah and Peter from the street who are losing now, you know, all their salary money. Or so I would still, you know, keep it not so negative, or I'm more for the positive approach, saying, hey, we will also see great success cases coming out of this new way of funding for startups.
Richard, from a traditional point of view.
Yeah, I mean, just one very quick comment about this game. I mean, losing game, if I lose a game of Monopoly with my brother and sister, I mean, I think it is very disingenuous to say it's a game when it has profound real consequences for people when they lose. That's true.
It's true. A game.
But when you go to a casino or when you gamble, hopefully you know the likelihood, if you know anything about basic statistics, is that you are likely to lose. So I don't want to see my teenage children seduced by the promise of a game in which everybody wins, or the only outcome is to win. And I just think that, look, the investment industry has been horrible at warning people about the risks for 100 years. And I would like to think that in the world of crypto and ICOs and so forth, that people have learned some of the lessons of the past. So I think it's a bit too easy to say, oh, it's a game, which is very seductive to my 15-year-old sons until they've lost their savings by throwing it in one or another cryptocurrency.
Well, I double down. I think it's a game with different rules and different awareness of it, and it's obviously not a game as you download one in the App Store. I think the attitude to ownership and to asset is a game-like kind of attitude, and it's not an investment in the sense that you don't have a framework, at least not enough in history of framework, to make sure that you have a way to analyze it, to make sure that you're going to have an ROI based on that. You buying into an ICO today or a coin because you're buying a promise, you're buying a dream, you're buying a hope. And part of the rule is that you can lose all your money. If the person who is investing or putting his money or gambling his money, whatever we want to call it, is not aware of that rule, it's a big mistake. So it's a game where you can lose all your money. And it's the way it has to be defined. But for me, it's not really an investment in the sense that we don't have the history behind us to build a framework to analyze it and project results.
But I think regulators are on their way of understanding it better, and you know, we will see the first great cases coming out, I think, in the next couple of months and also in the next year. I heard that some countries want to come up with a law already end of June, and so it will continue now that everyone is trying to grasp it and understand it better. And the more, I mean, as soon as there are some regulations, everyone will feel in a clearer and safer environment. So I'm very positive here.
So on two things. First of all, on the whole gamification thing, you could argue that all investments is technically a game, you know, if you want to. But the issue that you're running into so the issue with crypto and digital assets, or whatever you want to call it, is that people are investing, you know, not taking that 1 to 5% or that little bit of money they put into a normal game, or if they're playing any sort of game like that, people are taking mortgages and they're buying Bitcoin, which is absurd to me. In this type of asset class. And the second thing about general ICOs is, this may not be popular, but I really believe that ICOs are broken right now. I think they even were broken when Brave, Basic Attention Token, had his ICO, which is an ICO that I was really excited about. I think it was $40 million, $40 million? $36 million. It got closed out in about 8 seconds. One person paid $10,000 in mining fees in order to get 10% allocation in the company. That does not sound like an ICO. That sounds like, you know, anything of the sort. You're having right now, a majority of the ICOs are private sales. A majority of the ICOs are traditional VCs, like myself, you know, coming in and buying. And that's just what ICOs are. Vitalik has spoken about the issues that are plaguing ICOs. The other issue that people don't talk about ICOs is the idea of milestones that are put in traditional VC models in terms of a seed, A, B, C, etc. So I think we're going to have to move to that model. And shockingly, the best application to create something like milestone where money is saved is a smart contract, which is what Ethereum or most blockchains are building right now. So I do think there needs to be a lot of work done in the ICO space, and I think regulation is going to be a good thing. But the question is, you know, how do the regulators understand, like you were saying before, the difference between Bitcoin, which you can argue is a currency, and Ethereum, which you could argue is a commodity, versus you know, a platform that has an actual product already, which is more of a utility token, versus a security token, which is a platform that doesn't have a product yet. So are they able to differentiate between all those things is a huge question mark that we still don't know anything about yet.
A lot is related to definition of the market and the overviews that everyone has as an interpretation of what's going on, which is kind of weird.
So I agree. All right. I agree with a lot of what has been said. So first, ICOs have well evolved since Brave. By the way, I'm a big fan of Brave. I'm a user and I'm a hodler, as they say. But the typical case where in 10 seconds everything is gone, basically. So ICOs, in the way they are organized, are changing. That being said, there's still a lot of things that are really, really broken in the ICO space, starting by the nature of the projects themselves. So what is often talked about is the project that succeed, that magically raise hundreds of millions of dollars in no time, which, by the way, is not true, because it requires 6 months of work minimum and millions of dollars in legal fees. But what is not talked about is all the projects that actually don't manage to raise their full amount, and that's the majority. So that's one first element to remember. The number two element is that the moment of truth for ICOs, or for ICO projects, better said, has not yet arrived. They all promise a lot of things that they're going to deliver, products, great partnerships, and things of that nature. And they will be held accountable by the token owners community. And that moment of truth will arrive probably because of the amount of money raised, not immediately, but because probably a year or 2 years from now. And if they fail to deliver, if they fail their token owners community, they will be sanctioned immediately in exchange, and their token will crash. That will have a very negative effect on the morale of the employees, on the token owner communities, and even if the company has a lot of cash in the bank, the product will go more physically bankrupt because they won't have any energy to put behind it. So I think the moment of truth will not arrive because of the regulator, but because they will, a lot of them will have, the majority of them, sorry, will have the inability to deliver. And I think that will not change. ICO, not ICO, crypto, not crypto. At the end of the day, it's a company. A company that does not deliver is a company that dies. So no matter how much money they have in the bank. So I think we're going to see a lot of that, because there is way too many projects and way too many non-interesting projects. I have more to say, but I will stop here.
Richard.
Well, I mean, I think back to the game point, it's very simple. The presentation that I sent to you all, I showed you all, has no stock recommendations in it. I cannot, unless I decide whether I accredit you as a professional investor, tell you whether you should buy or sell any security, and I won't anyway if you don't pay me. So this is what I'm a little afraid of with this gamification thing, that there is no investor protection or advertising requirement or accreditation requirement for crypto investments. And if you're handing out to teenagers who make videos, cryptocurrency, that's, you know, they need to be given a health warning with that. And I completely agree. It's no different than, you know, telling the odd retail investor, hey, I got a great stock tip for you. Psst, you know, buy this share. It's kind of like the same thing, which is an easy way for people to be led astray. So I'm all for multiple avenues of raising money, especially ones that don't pay the institutional taxes that are levied. But unfortunately, a lot of those schemes, as you were mentioning, one, this useless token, I think, you know, there are many.
Useless Ethereum token.
Just many pump and dump, puff and stuff scandals out there waiting to come out, and it's going to lead to a black eye for the entire space when people like my teenage kids find out that they've lost all their money.
What to think of Amazon and Facebook regarding all this situation? I mean, the state of Facebook. Earlier this week, they announced that they're going to create their own cryptocurrency, and we saw Amazon that is trying to get into it too.
I mean, we still have to wait what this cryptocurrency shall do, what Bitcoin or Ether couldn't do, or I don't know. It's too early, I would say, to really judge for what this token they want to create is going to be. But for sure, I mean, it's a centralized platform that is, like we also just heard, that is just keeping, you know, the ownership of their data and their oil. So I'm not sure really where they really want to start sharing this kind of profit with people using the platform or creating content on a daily basis. It will be interesting. I think, of course, now they heard the ring, you know, bell and see, okay, there is something coming up on the horizon, and how do we react to it? But it's not yet clear to me what this token really could do for the users.
Could we even imagine paying our campaigns on Facebook with cryptocurrency? I mean,
you know, I can call on my my new friend from Baidu here to he can give us an insight in the China market, where, you know, you have Alipay and Tencent Weixin payments as a regular feature of everyday life for, you know, hundreds of millions of consumers. And very recently, the government has stepped in to impose some fairly stringent regulations to make sure that the data is shared widely and that the economics of the system are reset fairly. And, you know, it is inconceivable to me that Facebook, Google, and Apple by the end of this decade won't have a much more material role in the payments world than they have today, and equally inconceivable that it's beyond their $47 billion of collected R&D money to come up with some solutions there.
Josh?
So whenever I hear a multinational just say blockchain, it's, you know, startups like to do it also. Everyone likes to do it now, just say blockchain. Kodak said blockchain. Their stock quadrupled in a day. And then one of my favorite writers, Matt Levine, who writes from Bloomberg, who's hilarious, he said basically it's a centralized blockchain, which is as much as a blockchain as if somebody just yelled blockchain, blockchain, blockchain over again. It's centralized. It's what's known as a database. I've heard about those have existed before. A spreadsheet also. So it's really a lot of these, you know, you want to see what they're doing. What you know, Kin has done a nice job with their token sale. It didn't, even though it didn't go as well as they wanted to. Telegram is, I don't even know what's going on with it. It's pretty ambiguous in terms, it's a lot of, you know, rumors, and are they building it, are they not building it, and how much they raise. It's pretty crazy. But a lot of it really depends on what they're actually building. Are they building a private blockchain, or are they building a public blockchain? I'm hard pressed to believe that Facebook would ever go onto a fully public blockchain, just because they've had enough data issues, you know, in the past, you know, month or two with Zuckerberg going to Congress, but just going even more transparent in terms of all their records. If they want to do payments, great. They're the same as JP Morgan's QuickPay, except it's under Amazon instead, or Facebook instead. Same exact thing. So there really has to be an understanding that there's an actual use for the token, and it does something, like was said before, that Ether, Bitcoin, or even the US dollar couldn't do beforehand. So I'm very hesitant to, and you know, they want to get earnings. Maybe they had a bad month and are waiting for the analysts to you know, they're trying to get a little juice before they're worried about a drop. But I have no idea. That's pure speculation that don't know anything about.
Ouriel.
So it's clear that none of those big companies want to be left out, and they all set up their labs, right? So Facebook has put my, you know, David Marcus, which I happen to know well, was running Messenger, now is going to run this blockchain group. No one really knows what they're going to do. We'll try to get some tips, but for now we don't know. Amazon has released a blockchain as a service, and Google has multiple secret blockchain projects inside, etc., etc. What's interesting is to look east, right? If you go to Asia, you can see that all major existing social networks in Korea, in Japan, in China, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, they've already put in place major investment in the blockchain space for different purposes. And one of the most successful ICOs lately has been Mithril. It's belonging to one of the most successful social networks in Korea. And it has actual real product with real traction, with real usage, with a real token that is really used. I'm actually participated in the ICO, so I could have seen it myself. And it's very interesting that they don't consider it as a lab there. It's a real thing, right? So just for you to have a point of reference, in the US, the stats say that maximum number of 8% of people own crypto. In Korea, it's about 35%. So there it's already a reality. We can nearly call it a mainstream reality. So they're already trying to implement these things. And they implement it at different level. It could be a payment system. It can be an architecture where data is going to be managed more efficiently, more transparently, and give back ownership to the user. Like if you think about what you're doing on Facebook, basically you are feeding them with your data and they earn it and you don't earn anything. So they're building they're reversing the laws of economics there. And they could do all sorts of other things. Like one of the big use case of crypto right now is collectibles, the ability to own a digital asset that is non-fungible, meaning it cannot be changed, it cannot be split, and it's owned by someone and you can prove it. And so they're experimenting around all those things, and I think they are going to lead the world in how cryptos are going to be used in social networks. I think Facebook and all the others, Snapchat, are going to be left out, and that's why they worry now. They put these things in place, but I think they're not moving fast enough compared to Asia.
Yeah, I agree.
Just one more thing I forgot was that if I was Amazon, AWS specifically, I would be frightened of what Filecoin, SiaCoin, and StorageCoin are doing right now. I mean, it's basically Silicon Valley Pied Piper in real life without the ICO. You know, what StorageCoin is doing in terms of creating decentralized file storage. This is a use case that makes a ton of, which is Pied Piper, without the compression. It's something that should frighten Amazon. It's not something that's ready right now. It's not ready tomorrow. It should frighten. So it should frighten their web services business in terms of their file storage. And it's something that, you know, the idea to once it's super alpha, as we said before, this whole sector is super alpha. But that concept should be, they should be looking down the road and saying, okay, how are we going to combat this? How are we going to solve this? What are we going to do to stop this power? And there may not be anything they can do, so maybe they try to go in a different direction. But that's something that I think Amazon should be and probably is well aware of right now.
Well, you know, I'm running a startup too on the blockchain. I'm in touch with IBM, Microsoft / Amazon. I think that they all want to get into the space. And honestly, there is a lot of space for whoever is right now developing his own blockchain solution. But I think that about moving fast, we have to carry on the other side of the market. The interest about blockchain and to blockchain, and you know, you have the crypto and you have the blockchain. And today, so far, I don't think that we can speak about a lot of interest regarding the blockchain. A lot of people are not getting into because not educated about blockchain. The knowledge here has a huge importance. And I think about the other generation that you deal with right now, they are more inclined to better understand how it goes because they are already using it.
And I think especially that now the great also blockchain use cases can come out of any kind of country, not the US right. Or not also not the European or Western countries. It could come out of Africa, where the first elections are now run on blockchain. And so I think the great use cases, as always, it can come out now out of a generation that is not yet used to any sort of system, so they are just jumping over existing systems into this new world, or in countries where they haven't established this kind of infrastructure. That's also why in Africa, a bit, the mobile usage, in a way, they jumped over line. The normal telecom, lines that we have created in fiber systems in the Western countries, they immediately jumped into this new mobile world.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
so I think it can come out of everywhere now.
Richard.
Well, I tell you, I really have a bit of an issue with this whole discussion, because blockchain is not a space. It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Okay?
Yes,
It is a tool. It is a means to an end. It's not some new nirvana of a completely Wild West tech era that we're all going to leap into. It's a tool. And I don't disagree that there are some extremely novel implementations of this tool, and I don't disagree that there is a generation and there's many other regions which will find novel ways to use the tool. But what I keep coming back to, and this is kind of the hard reality, is between now and end of 2020, Google's going to generate $110 billion of cash flow. And if these companies are so horrendously disruptive, they'll get bought. And I really, unfortunately, it's not the world I necessarily want to see, but it's the reality. In China, you have BAT of Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And Tencent right now has 600 venture investments.
Yeah.
600. How they manage them, I don't know. They also have a listed company portfolio of about $40 billion. So they have the ability to co-opt this disruption. And I mean, the other wildly overused word makes me want to vomit when I hear it is disruption. It's like we're walking down the street and things are blowing up all over the place.
Yeah.
That's not the reality. People change very incrementally. Generations change very incrementally. Your advisory board in 3 years will be between 17 and 20 years old. And they're really outliers, unfortunately. There's generations that are coming, but it takes time. So let's stop talking about blockchain like it's anything other than a set of tools. Crypto is a set of tools. How they get applied, and to imagine that they get applied wholly wiping away and all that solid melts into air, all the existing companies in the space, is, to my mind, is a bit of a fantasy. It's a lovely fantasy. It's kind of a sci-fi fantasy, but I don't see it happening that way.
Ouriel?
So yeah, everything can be bought today because the market cap of all crypto together is $500 billion. So yeah, they can buy anything. I don't think this will hold, though. I think the market forces are going to change exponentially after regulations are in place, and investors will feel more comfortable. Institutional money and trillions of dollars will come in the space, and then it will be harder to acquire them. The same way it's hard to imagine that. I mean, they tried, but Yahoo they bought Google, yes, probably early on, but could they buy them today? There is nowhere on earth. I mean, not that I'm aware of. Same thing with Facebook. They tried to buy Facebook in early days. They could have, but now there is no way. And I think, not today. Today, I completely agree to what you said. I think that a few years from now, once institutional money is coming into the space and the industry is worth trillions of dollars, I think acquisitions will be hard. Maybe they will pay the full price in order to get their pass in the industry, and they will be able to pick up one of the actors and one of the players, and that will be the price to pay to get in. Yeah. But I think the industry will become way too big for one of those players to own it. Actually, what I do believe is it's very likely that one of those companies, don't know which, maybe it will be Coinbase, Brave, I don't know which, but one of those will be a huge company in the 5 or next 10 years, and that will not be owned by Google, Facebook, or Microsoft.
Of course not. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of obvious. Josh.
I forgot what the original question was. We went on like a tangent.
There is no question
anymore. No problem. Yeah, just blockchain.
A market, or is it
yeah, so I think with what the thing I imagine is, Google coming in and buying a token, which would be a hilarious, buying. How is that going to work? Because it'd be like if there's a DAO that was bought by a company, that would look really interesting. Like I said before, I think that this market is extremely young. I think we're still in the, it's not advice, but we're you look at you probably could eventually overlay the NASDAQ internet bubble with the current bubble that's going on in the crypto market space, blockchain market space, whatever you want to do. And there's some interesting there are going to be some companies that die, and it could be Bitcoin, it could be Ether. I was at a conference last year at the Technion where really an amazing conference. Vitalik was here and Catherine Hahn was here. It was an amazing conference. And I was talking to Peter von Valkenburg, and we were from Coin Center, and we were saying that, because it was the day that Jamie Dimon said Bitcoin's a scam, one of the 15 times he said it, and the market was down 20% because, of course. And we were talking about, Bitcoin could die, Ether could die, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be something else out there that utilizes blockchain technology. You could argue, and I'm someone who argues that Satoshi's vision in the original Bitcoin white paper is really a work of genius, but unfortunately it's a project that's an experiment that's close to failing. We can, if someone wants to talk about more about why, I could, afterwards go on at length about why I think that's true. But that doesn't mean that his vision and his technology that he's built is not going to be a tool that changes the world, and something that really that corporations utilize to help with transparency and quick payments, and people owning the market in all those different ways.
Definitely, we've seen Napsters in the early years of the internet, and we're going to see a lot of failures.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Is Bitcoin MySpace or is it Google? I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't think anybody knows.
But what we do know is that what it remains certain is that Google, Apple, Amazon are going to grow even more from now and reinforce themselves regarding everything related to data and the blockchain, failures and ICOs and stuff. One more question. What is going to happen to Bitcoin within the next few months?
I just sort of ruined what I thought with what I just said. At the same time, I'm not a market expert, I'm not a researcher, but we were saying before that markets act irrationally longer than they act rationally, so I have no clue. Bitcoin is probably centralized right now. It's not necessarily a great method of payment. Let's see what happens with Lightning. Let's see what happens with smart contracts.
Absolutely.
Throughput, user experience. Does that mean that it goes to 0 or it goes to 100,000? And John McAfee doesn't have to do what he Google that about what he said he'd do if Bitcoin doesn't hit 250,000. I have no idea, and it really somebody who says they know for sure where Bitcoin's going to go is the same person when I bought Ether, at the end of 2016. I had no idea that it was going to go on the ride that it went on. I had absolutely no clue. If it would have gone up 45-50% in a year, I'd be excited. And then it goes up, I don't even, ridiculous. So I have no idea. And I think anybody who says, oh, it's for sure going to go to 100,000, it could die tomorrow very easily. So I don't know.
Ouriel.
So no one can predict the future, and no one can. Really, but you can look at the past. And so Bitcoin is the only digital asset that no one has managed to kill so far. There was no successful 51% attack. How many people own Bitcoin here? Raise your hand. All right, okay, good chunk. So far, no one has managed normally to break your Bitcoins. I mean, unless you made a mistake or someone has cracked into your computer. But the blockchain itself has not been cracked, and that's an amazing accomplishment in itself, because if you look at the modern computing, basically everything has been cracked, right? So Bitcoin, and especially financial systems, so Bitcoin has not been cracked so far. So that's one amazing accomplishment. Number two thing is that the amount of community developers around Bitcoin right now is still very, very strong, and I would not short it right now, okay? Number three, I would wait to make a prediction for the regulators to make clear statements, because the true moment of truth will arrive when institutional money will come in, when pension funds, when big insurance companies and stuff are going to pour trillions of dollars into this asset class. And if they choose Bitcoin, you should not bet against it, at least not for the next years. But with this, we don't know yet. So for me, the next milestone is that moment. Yes. So right now, it's kind of betting, waiting for that to happen.
Richard.
Yeah. I mean, I have no particular prediction about the price of Bitcoin. I would say just two things. One is I'd love it if every blockchain discussion replaced the word blockchain with distributed ledger or something really boring.
Yes.
And then it would be, we wouldn't have bunches of blockchain week in New York where Jamie Dimon strides on stage with, whomever to talk, what's distributed ledger. It sounds really nice and dull, right?
Well, the DLT
and that's what we want. Tools we want to be dull and to work.
Yeah.
Okay, and as to your point about institutional investors, since they're my clients, I would say right now there is no corporate treasurer or money manager who wants to stomach the volatility that you see in, there's no emerging markets currency that you'd want to stomach the kind of volatility you see in any cryptocurrency.
That's right.
And there will, in my humble opinion, be no real institutional investment into cryptocurrencies until you can moderate that volatility. Because no one can afford to lose 10% of their portfolio in seconds without any apparent logical reason for it. Yes, there's all sorts of wild moves in foreign exchange markets, but they're much more moderate than that. And you just can't stomach, when you think about risk profiles of insurance companies or institutional investors, you cannot stomach that level of volatility. Until it dies down, it's going to be something that is observed from afar.
Well, on the other side, if you don't have anyone moderating this market, institutions won't go by themselves, turning upside down the market. They cannot
won't play that role.
That's right.
They don't want to play the role of being the cop.
That's right. No one's.
I'm with the teenagers backing it more on the optimistic side. I in a way heard, of course, also Tim Draper saying it's going to be at a 250K in the next year. So, I truly believe that, if it's Bitcoin or definitely the cryptos, that we will see it still on the rise. And
hopefully.
yeah, and again, the next wave is coming, and so very positive.
Well, thank you so much. Any question? So we're all gonna have a lot of money by the end of the year by investing in Bitcoin. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yael. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Melanie.